Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The 10,000-Year Explosion, How Civilization Accelerated Human Evolution, by Gregory Cochran and Henry Harpending. Narrated by Jonathan Yen. Publisher's note: in this audio edition, you may hear references to visual elements present in the print and ebook formats of the book. Preface. For most of the last century, the received wisdom in the social sciences has been that human evolution stopped a long time ago, in the most up-to-date version, before modern humans expanded out of Africa some 50,000 years ago. This implies that human minds must be the same everywhere, the psychic unity of mankind. It would certainly make life simpler if it were true. Unfortunately, a recent halt to evolution also implies that human bodies must be the same everywhere, which is obviously false. Clearly, received wisdom is wrong, and human evolution continued. In the light of modern evolutionary theory, it is difficult to imagine how it could have been otherwise. Since the social sciences, anthropology in particular, haven't exactly covered themselves with glory, we have decided to take a new tack in writing this book, one that takes the implications of evolutionary theory seriously, while cheerfully discarding unproven anthropological doctrines. Our approach leans heavily on genetics, and with genetic information accumulating at an incredible rate due to the ongoing revolution in molecular biology, it is an approach that we believe has been very fruitful. At the same time, we make use of paleontology, archaeology, and good old-fashioned history to support our arguments. We think that it is a mistake to neglect any relevant information. A lot of our work could be called genetic history. It's a new kind of history. We share the usual facts, but we use a very different explanatory framework. Traditional historians tell the stories of battles and kingdoms and great men. Some study the history of ideas, or of science and technology. Quantitative historians examine commerce and demographic trends. We, however, are interested in the historical factors that have influenced natural selection in humans, particularly those having to do with the creation and spread of new, favorable alleles. This means that when a state hires foreign mercenaries, we are interested in their numbers, their geographic origin, and the extent to which they settled down and mixed with the local population. We don't much care whether they won their battles, as long as they survived and bred. We're not particularly interested in their cultural baggage, unless it changes selection pressures or influences gene flow. Conventional social sciences, such as history and anthropology, chiefly concern themselves with brain software, by which we mean cultural developments such as mores, mythology, or social structure. Genetic history addresses changes in the underlying hardware, changes in body and brain, which also matter. If they didn't, dogs really could play poker. For an anthropologist, it might be important to look at how farmers in a certain region and time period lived. For us, as genetic historians, the interesting thing is how natural selection allowed agriculture to come about to begin with, and how the new pressure of an agricultural lifestyle allowed changes in the population's genetic makeup to take root and spread. We take this same approach whether we are looking at the human revolution of the Paleolithic period, the agricultural revolution of 10,000 years ago, or the modern development of the Ashkenazi Jews of Europe, who rose to intellectual prominence in the West quite recently after experiencing unique natural selection pressures during the Middle Ages. We arrived at this approach via different paths. Gregory Cochran was trained as a physicist, and following theory where it leads, no matter how odd, comes naturally to a physicist. Henry Harpending began his graduate career with enthusiasm for the social sciences. Years of disillusionment with the status quo in these fields led him into demography and genetics, areas where he believes there is real theory with strong links to the rest of the sciences. Many colleagues have provided suggestions, ideas, and objections to the material in this book. We are grateful to all of them for their help and their criticism. Particularly prominent among these colleagues are John Hawks of the University of Wisconsin, Robert Moises and Eric Wang of the University of California at Irvine. Wang is now at Affymetrix Corporation, and Alan Rogers, Doug Jones, and Renee Pennington of the University of Utah. We have also benefited from discussions with members of the Human Biodiversity Internet Discussion Group run by Steve Saylor. We are indebted to Kristen Hawks, James O'Connell, Dennis O'Rourke, and John Seeger of the University of Utah, Gregory Clark of the University of California at Davis, Alan Fix of the University of California at Riverside, Montgomery Slatkin of the University of California at Berkeley, Kim Hill of Arizona State University, Bruce Lawn of the University of Chicago, Mel Connor of Emory University, Jeremy Stone of Catalytic Diplomacy, Razib Khan of the GNXP website, James Lee of Harvard University, Rosalind Arden of King's College London, Phil Rushton of the University of Western Ontario. Parts of this work were supported by the UNS Foundation and by development funds associated with the Thomas Professorship at the University of Utah. 1. Overview. Conventional wisdom. There's been no biological change in humans in 40,000 or 50,000 years. Everything we call culture and civilization we've built with the same body and brain. Stephen Jay Gould. Something must have happened to weaken the selective pressure drastically. We cannot escape the conclusion that man's evolution towards manness suddenly came to a halt. Ernst Mayr. We intend to make the case that human evolution has accelerated in the past 10,000 years, rather than slowing or stopping, and is now happening about 100 times faster than its long-term average over the 6 million years of our existence. The pace has been so rapid that humans have changed significantly in body and mind over recorded history. Sargon and Imhotep were different from you genetically, as well as culturally. This is a radical idea, and hard to believe. It's rather like trees growing noticeably as you watch. But the evidence is there. Scientists have long believed that the Great Leap Forward, some 40,000 to 50,000 years ago in Europe, marked the advent of cultural evolution and the end of significant biological evolution in humans. At this time, the theory goes, humans developed culture, as shown by the sophisticated new tools, art, and forms of personal decoration that emerged in the Upper Paleolithic. Culture then freed the human race from the pressures of natural selection. We made clothes rather than growing fur, and built better weapons rather than becoming stronger. The argument that the advent of behavioral modernity somehow froze human evolution is dependent on the notion of a static environment. In other words, if a population of humans, wolves, crabgrass, you name it, experiences a stable environment for a long time, it will eventually become genetically well-matched to that environment. Simple genetic changes then do little to improve individual fitness, because the species is close to an optimum. An economist would say that all the $100 bills have already been picked up off the sidewalk. In that
Sample complete. Ready to continue?